Alrighty, folks. So I am here to recap and review the season 4 finale of Yellowstone. Yellowstone, of course, one of the most watched shows on TV. It's produced, created, written by Taylor Sheridan. He, of course, has his own Taylor Sheridan verse. He's most famous for doing movies like Sicario and Wind River and Hell or High Water. He also has 3 shows simultaneously running, which is totally crazy. He has Yellowstone, 1883, and Mayor of Kingstown. Yellowstone is the most popular of the shows. As we'll discuss, I don't think it's the best of those shows. We'll get to all of that and more in just one moment. First, this video is brought to you by our friends at ExpressVPN. Okay, so I've been watching Yellowstone since it first came out and before it was kind of a thing. Mainly because I will watch any show that has guns and people in cowboy hats. It doesn't matter what it is. It sort of had a slow build to become a thing, and now it is the most watched television show in America, mainly because it's got Kevin Costner and cowboys doing cowboy things, and people like that sort of thing. It also happens to be a show that is horribly written. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. There's no internal logic to it. This season, it just fell apart completely. So the original setup for Yellowstone, for folks who haven't watched the show, and spoiler alert, there will be spoilers, the original setup of the show is that John Dutton is Kevin Costner, and John Dutton has the Dutton Ranch. Right? It's in Montana. It's this giant chunk of land that has been carried forward over the course of generations. And there is sort of this 3-way conflict between a Native American tribe, which feels that they were the original owners of the land before the Duttons came there. And then there is the Dutton family, which is trying to maintain the ranch. And then there are these developers who are coming in and they alternatively want to build a hotel or a casino or an airport. That is the first season. And it's kind of interesting because even though it's really purple and a lot of people are getting shot randomly in Montana, which would probably draw some national news coverage. More people have been murdered in Montana over the course of this show than actually live in Montana in real life. The bodies are stacked like cordwood in Montana, according to this show. But the basic idea of the show is that John Dutton was a man who was willing to do what was necessary in order to preserve the ranch with the help of his sort of main man in crime, Rip, who is his adopted son and who happens to be just a super badass who's just killing people and throwing them down hills and such. Right? And then the entire ranch is run sort of like a mafia business, was the original concept of the show. Right? Everybody who comes in has to get a giant brand on them with the Yellowstone, and you have to be there for life, and you have to be loyal, and it's supposed to be sort of like Sopranos set in the West. Well, pretty quickly, it became clear that Taylor Sheridan was too in love with John Dutton's character to allow that to happen. So now Kevin Costner is basically just an out-and-out white-hatted hero. Everything that he does is wonderful. And Rip, who is sort of a brutal murderer, but also kind of awesome, now Rip is also a saint who only does really good things. And if he does a bad thing, it's to somebody who's totally bad and we know is bad. The original tripartite setup has completely disappeared at this point. The Native American storyline, which was the conflict between the Native American tribe and the ranch, which was supposed to be exacerbated by the fact that John's son, Casey, has sort of a split life where he is John's son, served in the military, but then came back and married Monica, who's a member of the tribe. This was supposed to create all sorts of internal dissension and conflict. Casey has basically been marginalized. Thomas Rainwater, who's the leader of the tribe and sort of a clever political operator, he's been completely marginalized. Even the developer storyline has been completely marginalized. Right? There's a big corporation called Market Equities, which should just be called Big Corporation, Big Inc., that's supposed to be investing in the land, wants to buy the land, wants to remake it into an airport and all this, and they're the bad guys, right? Even they've been marginalized. So this season is just a complete mess. It's a complete mess. Like all of the character-driven sort of conflict has been completely ripped away. Right? One of the sons is Jamie. Jamie is this supposed to be smooth political operator who also is apparently some sort of sociopath. It turns out that he was adopted. His dad was a murderer. And John Dutton just had this habit of taking in kids, apparently. And so Jamie was supposed to have all this internal conflict and he was going to run for governor against his father. And then that all went by the wayside. That's all the lead up to this season. Okay, last season, season 3 of Yellowstone ended with everyone getting shot or blown up. Everyone. Casey gets shot. John gets shot repeatedly. Beth gets blown up by a bomb. There's a bomb like a foot from her. That's the end of season 3. And you're like, whoa, who lived? Who died? Man, this is going to change the face of Yellowstone forever. Nope. Season 4, 5 minutes in, everybody's fine. Casey's healed up. He's fine. John shot 97 times. He is totally fine. Beth had a bomb literally blow up next to her. And she apparently walked out of the building fairly unscathed with a few scars and scrapes and just lights up a cigarette. And she's totally fine as well. Beth is supposed to be sort of the wild card character who doesn't like the ranch, but she's kind of loyal to her dad. And she's a complete dissolute mess. Well, now she's monogamous and in love with Rip, and they are going to get married and all of that's very nice. Okay, so the storyline for this season was supposed to be who tried to kill them. And The question was it Jamie? So you figured the entire thing is going to be Jamie, who has been at odds with the family, and he's now found his actual natural father, and his father is sort of manipulating him. Is Jamie going to side against the family, and this is going to be the conflict, right? That's what you think the conflict is going to be in the first episode. It turns out, nope. It turns out that's not the chief conflict at all. In fact, there is no chief conflict. Each one of these characters has a bizarre separate storyline that makes no sense at all. And again, we're going to get to the finale because the writing is just abysmal in the finale. I mean, just bad, just out and out bad. And so here are the character arcs for the season. John Dutton's job is he's going to run for governor to stop Jamie from being governor. Is that the main storyline? Nope. The main storyline with John is that he's stooping an environmental terrorist, played by Piper Perabo, who hasn't been in a thing since, I think, Coyote Ugly in 1972.
So close.
He's stooping her. She's an environmental terrorist. We have no idea why he's interested in her or why he would be interested in her. And his entire storyline this season is he's stooping her, and then she goes to jail for a short period of time. That's his storyline this season. Then there's Beth's storyline this season, which basically was she adopts a child and then alienates the child and is mean to the child.
I don't want those fucking things.
I don't know. Beth is sort of supposed to be a girl boss who's good at things, but she's really bad at everything. And apparently good business strategy in Yellowstone is walking into rooms in very low-cut dresses and then sexually harassing everybody in sight, including random secretaries. Like, there is no worse job in America than to be a secretary who has to talk to Beth Dutton. There's no evidence she's good at anything, but apparently she's really good at business. Okay, but she's this uber-rich billionaire's daughter who lives on the most beautiful ranch in all of America. And she's like abusing the minimum wage employees. And she does this to everyone. So her entire storyline this year is just being mean to people. Just randomly being mean to people. Okay, then there's Casey's storyline, which apparently just involves him dealing with the fallout from the fact that in the last episode of season 3, his son Tate had to shoot a dude. And the season starts with his son experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder so strong that he's literally hiding under the bed for hours at a time. This, however, is resolved in the first couple episodes of the season when Casey literally goes into a room, looks at his son under the bed, and says, "You need to come out from under the bed, you're fine." And the kid goes, "Okay," which is how you solve post-traumatic stress disorder in Yellowstone, apparently. But Monica, the mom, is still really pissed about all of this. And so she wants to move back to the reservation. So they do. And that's the storyline. Jamie's storyline is that he wants to run for governor with the help of his derelict natural father who tried to plot the murder of the rest of his family. Except that it becomes pretty clear very soon that Jamie has no shot at being governor because his dad is running for governor. We don't even get them running against each other because the script immediately forecloses Jamie from running by pointing out that, oh yeah, his natural father is a murderer who murdered his mother. And also Jamie is super corrupt. Those are the actual storylines this season, guys. Oh, what? I forgot one storyline. There's a hand at the ranch whose name is Jimmy. Jimmy is an incredibly dull character no one cares about. Jimmy, his entire story, going back to season 1, is that he was basically a career criminal who ended up being given the choice to work at the ranch or to go to jail. He works at the ranch, he breaks his back twice, rodeoing, and then he is sent down to another ranch, the 4 Sixes down in Texas, where he learns to be a cowboy. By the way, that's all set up for the spinoff that they're doing of the 4 Sixes in Texas. So we have that whole storyline that no one cares about. Okay, so this leads up to the season finale. So what happens in the season finale of Yellowstone? And the answer is kind of nothing. We'll get to more of this in just one moment. First, a few decades ago, private citizens used to be largely that, private. What changed? Well, the internet. Think about all the things you've browsed, searched for, watched, tweeted. Now imagine all that data being crawled through, collected, aggregated by third parties into a permanent public record. Your record. Having your private life exposed for others to see, that was something that celebrities used to have to worry about, but nobody else. Now, everyone is a public figure. To keep my data private, when I go online, I turn to ExpressVPN. Did you know there are hundreds of data brokers out there and their sole business is to buy and sell your data? The worst part is they don't have to tell you who they're selling it to or get your consent. One of those data points is your IP address. Data harvesters use your IP to uniquely identify you and your location. With ExpressVPN, my connection gets rerouted through an encrypted server. My IP address is masked. Every time I turn ExpressVPN on, I'm given a random IP address shared by other ExpressVPN customers. That makes it really hard for third parties to identify me and harvest my data. The best part is how easy ExpressVPN is to use. Like, check this out. Okay, so I just open up this phone. You can see there is the ExpressVPN logo. Now it's open. I hit it. Doink, it's connected. And now, my internet activity is protected. It is that simple. If, like me, you believe your data is your business, secure yourself with the #1 rated VPN on the market. Visit expressvpn.com/BenYT and get 3 extra months for free. That's expressvpn.com/BenYT. Go to expressvpn.com/BenYT to learn more. So I'm beginning with Casey. He goes out into the wilderness and he does like a spirit walk where he doesn't eat or drink for 4 days and has visions of a wolf that is alternatively a very hot Native American woman who is not his wife. That is the end of his season. So good on him. Then there's the end of John's season, which is he gets environmental terrorist lady sentence reduced from 15 years to like 18 months. That's the end of that. Okay, then there's Beth and Jamie. So Beth's storyline in the last episode is just wild. So Beth finds out that the person who put out the hit, right, John has known this for a while, was a person who is in prison. Right? He's sort of a murder broker in prison for some reason. And she decides that she is going to personally go there and kill this person. We don't know why. We don't know why, as one of the richest and most powerful people in Montana, she cannot get somebody inside the prison to do it, which is normally how you would make something like that happen, I would imagine. Instead, she's personally going to do this. So she's always suspected that Jamie was the person who was behind the murder. Here's her idea of how she's going to take revenge on the person who ordered the hits on her family. She goes to Walker, who is a random dude at the ranch who also has a criminal record. And she's like, tell me about prison. He's like, prison is bad. She's like, whoa, tell me more. And he's like, well, let me tell you, it's really bad. She's like, but are there conjugal visits? He's like, yes, sometimes. She's like, well, how do I get a weapon in? He's like, well, you could bring a hairpin. All you really have to do is wear something low cut and they'll let you right in with a hairpin. And she's like, perfect. Okay, so then this story, I'm never going to get over this. She goes to the prison in a conjugal visit. This hulking giant inmate who is a murderer who is in prison for life. And he has no wife. So he's had no conjugal visits for like 30 years. Okay, he walks in to a conjugal visit room. He is alone with Beth Dutton, who is an attractive woman, wearing, I kid you not, a negligee because it's a conjugal visit. Her plan was that this man, who is at least 8 times her size and a murderer and maybe a rapist, her plan is she is going to kill him with a hairpin. That is her original plan. I have questions. Okay, then Beth proceeds to ask him about, like, did he put out the hit on her family? And he is like, well, I mean, I did, but that's what I do for a living. And also, I already told this to that lawyer guy. She's like, oh my God, do you mean this lawyer guy? She takes out her cell phone. It's Jamie. Because the script is so empty this season, every single episode is filled with 10 minutes of Beth just being terrible to someone. So she's got murder broker in front of her. She can be mean to murder broker, I get it. But she gives him, I kid you not, it feels like a 4-hour lecture about why he's bad and will live a bad life. He knows he's in prison. In prison, bad stuff happens, right? So she gives him a lecture about, you're in prison, you're going to be for 100 years, and I hope you die. And then when you do die, you're going to remember me giving you this speech. Okay, but it gets better for Beth. Because Beth's next move is that she's on her way home to the ranch. For some reason, she now takes the hairpin out of her hair, which has some symbolic resonance of some sort, because she sees a priest. She forces a priest into her car at gunpoint, brings him back to the ranch, and forces him to perform a wedding with her and Rip in front of her dad while she's in her negligee. She's got her surrogate son over here watching. Weird way to do a wedding. Strange. Then it gets even better. She decides, okay, now I have to go confront Jamie. So she confronts Jamie and she's like, you know, we've got a few choices for you, but there's one choice you should take. The choice that you should take is that you should shoot your dad, your natural dad. He's like, okay. So he shoots his natural dad and dumps him down the mountain with like all the rest of the Dutton bodies, right? There's like this hill where the long black train, you throw people down the hill. Okay, so Jamie shoots his dad after saying, I love you to him. And she takes a video of this. And then she's like, we own you, Jamie. We own you. Well, here's the thing. The Dutton family has owned Jamie all along. They literally covered up another murder for him 2 seasons ago. So what? Huh? And that's the end of the season, is that everything is hunky-dory. We know that Casey has had some sort of spirit vision with a hot wolf girl thing. We know that John is not going to be with the environmental terrorist lady because she's still in prison and is still running for governor, maybe? We know that Jamie is back in the fold, kind of, but only because his sister Beth, who is the worst person on the show, is blackmailing him. But she's happily married now, somehow. Yeah. So, bottom line, I'll continue to watch the show because it's a hot mess, but it's fun to watch a hot mess. I'm sort of like quasi-hate watching it at this point. It needs to be better written. Somebody needs to put together a show Bible in which we know before the season begins which characters are going to do what and how it all ties together. Here's what I would like to see. I would like to see if they're going to continue with the Jamie, John Dutton thing, then we need to actually see them run against one another. And then the question becomes, how dirty do they want to get in that race? I think that we need more from Beth. Like, she needs more to do. So it'd be kind of fascinating for her to be alienated from Dad and somehow to rekindle the friendship that she originally had with Jamie, we know from when they were kids. Right? That might be sort of interesting. We need to find Casey really stuck between the Native American interests on the show and his father's interests on the show, and he's supposed to sort of bridge both and figure out how that dynamic works. In other words, actual plot and storyline and maybe some characters. Like that would be good, I feel like. That is your season 4 recap, and we'll see you for the next season of Yellowstone.
I want to be a cowboy, baby.
Thanks for tuning in, and if you enjoy my movie and TV show reviews, click that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our videos in the future.